This is CNN Breaking News.
Welcome back. We are continuing to follow breaking news out of Los Angeles, where there is a barricaded suspect, the LAPD says, at a Trader Joe's in the Silver Lake area of this city. This follows a shooting in nearby Hollywood, less than 5 miles away, where the suspect, who is now barricaded inside this Trader Joe's, shot an elderly woman and a young lady and then fled. The police followed in pursuit. The suspect then ended up here at this Trader Joe's, crashing his car, shooting at officers. We know that at least one woman, not an officer, was wounded lightly and has been taken to a nearby hospital in what the authorities are calling fair condition. We are just learning that a manager at Gelson's Market, which is just across the street from the Trader Joe's, said that people inside the market heard shots fired from the outside. Many people yelled and dropped to the floor, she told us. The manager did not want to give us her name. No one was inside that Gelson's Market. No one inside there was hurt, according to this manager. The store is currently on lockdown. We know that the law enforcement has set up a wide perimeter around there. Customers are allowed to exit through the back of the building. We have been speaking to a number of eyewitnesses. I want to go to one of them now, Miguel Trujillo. If you're on the line, you saw what you believe was this gunman, was this suspect firing on the police.
Well, it's not what I believe. It was in plain sight. It was yards in front of me, and he ran out. He got out of his car quickly, and the cops fired at him, and he then fired at them. And in that instant moment, he went running into Trader Joe's. It wasn't surreal to me. I really did intake it, but it was a pulsating feeling of I need to survive. Like, I'm an actual threat. And I went in behind a car. There was a man that was about to get off to go shopping into Trader Joe's. His family was beginning to come out, and he told them just go inside, stay inside. And then he happened to escape this whole scene. But I was walking home, so I had to walk into the dry cleaners, which is part of the same building of Trader Joe's. It's right next to Trader Joe's, and I was just grateful that that building has very, very, very thick cement, because I was dreading that bullets were going to come through. That was my biggest fear, that bullets were going to come through, because it was something very violent, and it was something very, very violent and very, very dangerous. It was very threatening.
I'm sure it was, and we're very glad that you're safe. Miguel, you're the first person we've spoken with who's gotten eyes on this suspect. Can you describe him for us?
He is a buff, sexy black guy with dreads, and he's maybe like six, if not 5'11". He's around 6 feet. He's really buff, and that's it. He ran fast. He got out of there.
Was he shouting anything? Was he screaming at people?
He wasn't. I mean, from everything that I saw, from the moment he came out of his car to the moment he went into Trader Joe's, it was just a second. And no, he wasn't shouting. He was very focused in getting out of the area, out of like the cops' vision, their view. He just got out. He wasn't screaming or anything. It was all in the exchange of bullets was all in an instant. It was all in a moment. I should have reacted a lot quicker and gone behind that car a lot sooner, but he didn't shout. He didn't do anything. He didn't even turn his back much. It seemed like he was a pro at this already. Like, he picked up, when he got out of his car, he got out of his car backwards. Or no, his back was facing the cops, and I think maybe he turned once when he shot, but it didn't seem like all the way, and he ran to Trader Joe's, and then that was it. That was what I saw.
Miguel, I want you to stay on the line. We have some updates from the Los Angeles Police Department. Excuse me, this is not from the LAPD, this is from the LA Times. The gunman is believed to be inside that Trader Joe's, they write in this tweet, and might be wounded. Law enforcement sources are telling the paper that they do not believe that he was holding hostages, but said there still might be some people who are hiding in the store. But we understand the police are briefing right now. Let's listen in.
Over the fire right now, and they have a statement taken.
The Los Angeles Fire Department, first of all, it's David Ortiz, D-A-V-I-D, O-R-T-I-Z, Public Information Officer, Los Angeles Fire Department. Los Angeles Fire Department was dispatched to assist LAPD at 3:30 this afternoon to the 2700 block of Hyperion Avenue in the Silver Lake community. Thus far, the LA Fire Department has transported one female patient in stable condition. At this moment, we have 18 ambulances assigned to this incident with over 100 firefighters. That is all the information I have to release at this time. Thank you.
Right now, we know we have people inside. We simply don't know how many. Again, very early. This is preliminary information, and we're trying to bring this to an end. At this time, we simply don't know. Okay, again, we have our resources here to provide assistance once we can get in there and clear this place. But right now, we have a barricaded suspect, and he is armed, and we can't get in there right now. Again, trying to get the suspect to surrender and bring this to a peaceful conclusion. Yes, an unknown number of people have been.
You guys, real quickly, we got to let you know the fire department is going to need this entire area for their rescue ambulances. So I'm going to ask.
Well, we've been listening to both the LA Fire Department and the LAPD briefing very briefly their reporters. They were saying they don't know how many people are still inside, but that the suspect is armed. He is still inside. We just spoke with an eyewitness who said that he was a young African-American male. I want to bring Bob Baer back in. Bob, now that we've gathered a little bit more information, and James Galliano was making this very important point right before the last break, the LAPD is calling this saying that the suspect is barricaded. They have not used the word hostage. So that sounds like it's good news that we're talking about one individual who may not be holding hostages.
Yeah, I hope he's just barricaded, and people are making their way out, and they're not visible to him. But the police don't know that at this point for certain. They just don't know when he's going to move into a room where there's potential hostages and the rest of it. They're back to collecting information. I think that if they decide that he's barricaded, they'll move on him fairly quickly, and especially if he's wounded, they'll want to get him out of there. But again, it's a fluid situation, and it's hard to describe how chaotic a big store is when you got an armed gunman in there ready to shoot at you. And you still have people in there who may be safe or they may not.
Right. So that is what we are hearing. There are people inside the store still. As you mentioned, it's very fluid. We don't know if they're being held or they're simply hiding in there. We do know that the gunman is still in that store. He's armed. He had fled from nearby Hollywood after carrying out a shooting that wounded, as far as we know, 2 women, 1 elderly and 1 younger, and then drove this just under 5 miles to this Trader Joe's where he is barricaded inside. I want to go to another eyewitness who has since gone a little bit farther away from the scene. His name is Devin Field. Devin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Devin, what did you see?
I was arriving at the Trader Joe's, walking into the parking lot from up the street when a bunch of about 5 cop cars drove past me up the street in pursuit of someone that I didn't see, and I heard some pops of some gunfire. And then the gunman's car came from behind me and looked like it had damage to the front bumper. It was hanging about halfway off, and he was trying to turn, but the traffic kind of kept him from going anywhere. He didn't really have anywhere to go, so he crashed his car into that pole and jumped out of his car, and he had a pistol in his hand and just started opening fire on the police behind him. At which point I dove behind a small retaining wall at the edge of the parking lot. He was maybe 10, 15 yards from me. I lay down there with my back against the wall when 3 LAPD officers came, ran up and knelt behind the wall right next to me and opened fire on the gunman. Then he returned fire on them, so they got down on the ground to protect themselves.
And as far as you saw, sorry, keep going.
At that point, I think he had gone inside the store, and after he was inside the store for a little while, they had me crawl away from the scene and then run away around the corner.
And from what you saw, all of the gunfire was directed towards the police officers?
It appeared that way, you know, because he was shooting at about a 45-degree angle away from me. I was kind of closer behind him, but he was aiming out into the street. So it seemed as if he was returning fire at the police officers, but I didn't get the best look at that.
And from your vantage point, I understand that you were trying to take cover and keep yourself safe. He fled into the store. It's not like he was pointing the gun at people who were shopping and trying to round them up and get them into the store. He was just fleeing away from the police.
That's what it seemed like. I didn't see him grab anyone or take anyone inside. At that point, I didn't have a line of sight on him, so I don't know. But it seemed like he was just running into the store after crashing in front of it.
Can you describe the gunman? We heard from another eyewitness moments ago that he was a young African-American male, that he moved quickly. He looked like he knew what he was doing. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
No, that all sounds accurate. Yeah, African-American male.
And where are you right now? All right, we've lost Devin Field. Bob Baer, are you still with us? All right, well, we're just going to take a quick break. Oh, we have Bob Baer. Okay, Bob, we just heard from an eyewitness who said that he saw a young man running into the store. Describe for us now, we're trying to parse what limited information we do have. That this young man, we understand, is barricaded inside. We also know that there are other people inside, but we don't know whether they're being held hostage or whether they just haven't gotten out yet and are hiding. So if you are the person leading this effort on the ground right now, what are you directing your forces to do?
You're interrogating or questioning, all the witnesses, because they're all going to have a different story. They were all panicking. They're inherently unreliable. Yes, the first witnesses saw him running in, but it's the witnesses closer to the center of the store or even the second floor who are going to have a different version. So you're going to have to go through them and figure out who's the most reliable and figure out where this guy is. The police may know where he is now and may know whether he has a hostage, but I think it's really too early to find out. And again, going back, they really like to know that there's nobody around him, that it's safe to go and take him down, because the whole intent of this is to lose nobody, not a single person, either killed or wounded. And they'll do everything they can to make sure when they do the entry that no one gets hurt.
That's a very important differentiation. We have heard from the president who tweeted about this possible hostage situation and that he's watching it very closely. He said that federal law enforcement and is working with local law enforcement. So we can assume, although we don't know this right now, but we can assume from past instances, right, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, that it would be ATF and FBI. Who else would be on the scene?
FBI particularly, they have a SWAT squad in LA. It's not the main one in Washington, D.C. So they have people on the ground, and they will have deployed by now, and they will be assisting the LAPD. LAPD, I would imagine, is going to take point right now, but anything they need, they're going to step in, and they also have teams that could do an entry as well if they needed them.
And because we know that this suspect, and this is the LAPD did not correct the president when they retweeted him when he called it a hostage situation. So they're still allowing for the fact that this is indeed a hostage situation. What LAPD has said is that when officers went in pursuit of a suspect wanted in connection to a shooting, the suspect barricaded himself inside the Trader Joe's. So knowing that this suspect has already shot at police and shot at these two women earlier, how does that change the calculus of the police officers either trying to reach out and speak with this suspect or the SWAT teams that may be going in to try to confront him?
Well, if he's going to pick up the phone, you want to hear if there's any people around him, of course. I mean, that's very obvious. but right now, again, I go back. They absolutely cannot be sure he doesn't have anybody. And if this guy is willing to shoot at the police over an extended gun battle, somebody like that is going to grab a hostage at some point, and that's the assumption. You know, and then so then when he does talk to the police, says, "I've got people," and he takes those hostages and puts them around him to fend off an assault. That's the assumption the police are working on right now, and it's the absolute correct one. That's the way you want to do it. No
Right,
casualties in a takedown like this.
Right, so barricaded doesn't necessarily mean that the gunman is alone. We do know from the LAPD that people are inside there barricaded with the gunman. I want to go to CNN's Miguel Marquez, who has just arrived on the scene. And Miguel, you and I have covered lots of stories like this, but for you, this one hits particularly close to home. This is where you live. What are you seeing?
This is personal. Well, look, I can ride my bike to this Trader Joe's, so this is very personal. I want to show you a little bit here. The Trader Joe's is off in the distance there. You can see it. There is a bank of police cars, ambulances, and lots of police presence all up and down this street. The front doors for this Trader Joe's is on the other side of that white building that you can see. There's a big parking lot that then wraps all the way around. And then if you come back this way, there is a strip mall here, and in that strip mall there are heavy police presence, but also lots of people who have been coming out of that Trader Joe's and telling us their stories, as well as a lot of local press in that area as well. That is very, very close to the Trader Joe's, and the parking lot for this Trader Joe's wraps around that back side. Some of the windows that you may have seen people coming out of appears, at least from this side, to either be off this half roof that they have there or off the back side of the building altogether. It does look like there is a second floor there, and it probably is used for employees, so there are lots of places for people to move to. Just an extraordinarily heavy police presence. Both the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and FBI have offered their assistance and services to LAPD. LAPD does seem to have this in hand at the moment, starting at about 1:30 Pacific time with a double shooting near USC, if the address is correct. There's a couple of different 32nd Streets, but this one was probably downtown, 15-20 minute drive from here. And then officers from the Hollywood division picked him up. That individual then crashed into a pole in front of this Trader Joe's, and I'm actually crossing the street here to see if I can actually see where that is. Hard to see where that may have happened, but there is another large grocery store across the street from this Trader Joe's, and it is just an area that would have been extraordinarily busy. Fantastic news that many people are getting out. Very concerning that there's a barricade with possible hostages in there.
Yeah, Miguel, just judging from where you're standing, we've been watching the scene for about an hour and a half now. It does look like the police have pushed people back and pushed the press back. What Miguel is referencing there, for if the viewers are just tuning in, is that we have seen a number of people, shoppers, coming out of that Trader Joe's, not just from that front entrance with their hands up, at least one person. We've seen several people coming out from a side, which you can't see from this angle right here, but side windows about 15 or so feet off the ground. Miguel, who has shopped there in the past, explained that there might be a second floor. Miguel, you have someone there?
Yeah, we have Jason Kravarik, who is a producer with CNN. You've been over in this area speaking to people coming out of this Trader Joe's. What are they saying?
Well, what's happening over there right now, Miguel, is employees are reuniting. There's about a dozen standing over there, and they are hugging, embracing, they're teary-eyed. I managed to speak with one of them who just got out he actually lowered the emergency ladder from the Trader Joe's, said he heard gunshots in the store. People started to panic. And then he immediately knew, he was in an area off the main floor where customers were. He knew about an emergency ladder that could be deployed, and he immediately rushed for that. He deployed it, gathered up as many people as he could, and he's one of the people that we now see in the video that was lowered down. But that emergency ladder was inside the store, he says, and he actually deployed it and got some people out.
So there was a second floor that was used for business purposes only, where they were able to usher people up to, or what happened?
Yeah, he didn't want to be specific on the exact location of this. It was an area that was off the main floor, stock area, if you will. But he was very adamant that shots were fired in the store. I did tell him we had spoken to other witnesses who had said there were shots fired outside. Could he have been misconstruing that? But he was very convinced that shots were fired in the store.
Did he have any information that anybody may have been hit, or was this somebody firing shots at police either inside or close to the front doors of the stores he was fleeing?
He didn't, because he only heard it. He did not have an eyewitness on what happened. He just said it was loud enough and he heard the screams that he knew if it wasn't inside the store, it was very close and threatening.
Did he know how many people were on? I mean, I shop at this particular Trader Joe's. There's always a lot of people there. Saturday afternoons is a busy shopping time. Did he have any sense of how many people were either in the store and how big the staff was?
He did not, although he said he was able to get a couple of people out on his own. He did try to round up other people, and for whatever reason, they said they weren't willing to go. What they were doing, if they were still in action within the store, unclear, but he did say he tried to get other people. They stayed behind, and so he got 2 or 3 people out.
All right, Jason, thank you very much. Jason Krivaric, he's a producer here with CNN, who was over this way talking to folks who were sitting out of the store. So it sounds like some pretty heroic actions on the part of Trader Joe's employees at the moment, and hopefully this ends well for everybody. Very concerning, though, that shots were fired either very close to the store or inside of it. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. Miguel, stay right there. We're going to come back to you very shortly. We've just gotten a bit more information about this male suspect. The LAPD is saying that this suspect, and we learned from eyewitnesses that he's a young African-American male. We are now being told by LAPD that he is in his late teens. We know that he had been involved in a shooting right before this incident at the Trader Joe's. We're now learning that it was what they are calling a family dispute, where he shot his grandmother and a female. The suspect, in his late teens, then fled that location in Hollywood in his grandmother's vehicle, taking the other female victim with him. That is according to an LAPD spokesperson. We also know that a woman, and we don't know if it's the same one, but it might be fair to assume that the woman, that second victim, was taken to the hospital, we understand, in fair condition. I want to bring in Wallace Zines, who's a former New York police hostage negotiator. Mr. Zines, good to have you with us. We've been getting a steady stream of information from the LAPD. They are not disputing the president's characterization that this is a hostage situation, but the language that they are using is that this young suspect, in his teens we now know, has barricaded himself out inside this Trader Joe's. So knowing that language, what do you glean from that?
Knowing that language, first of all, it is a hostage situation. As long as there are people inside Trader Joe's and cannot get out, and the hostage taker has control of the interior of it, it is a hostage incident. Also, keep in mind, there may have been people that have gotten out of the location, but there are employees. That's a very large store. In my past experience, I once had a supermarket hostage incident, and employees were hiding in the large refrigerator areas down in the basement. They could be in the bathroom. There could be a lot of people, even shoppers could be in the location that we don't know about. So right now, until we can prove differently, that is the LAPD hostage team, we're going to consider this a hostage incident. Now, it's very different than a barricade situation. You're not going to go in there and make a dynamic entry, but there are some things that are very important that hostages should always know. And when you're in a situation like that, the first 10 to 30 minutes of any hostage incident, we call that fight or flight. That is when the hostage taker is looking for a place where he or she could be safe. The police are looking for cover and containment when they get there. And the hostages are all looking for a place to be safe. That's when most of the injuries happen, because people are in an excited mode. It's the fight or flight situation. Now, the other thing that's so important, if you are a hostage inside a location like that, you got to remember, number one, speak when you're spoken to. Don't become a person to start talking to the hostage taker. Secondly, hostage takers do not want sick individuals. If you have a medical condition, make sure you tell the hostage taker that you do have a serious medical condition. Those are usually the first people that are let out. Also, remember, one of the most important things, if a negotiation starts with the hostage taker that's in there right now and a conversation starts with the negotiator and the hostage, then they may want to talk to one of the hostages inside the location to get some credibility. Always remember to always give yes and no answers. Another thing that's so important is that if the police decide to make what they call a dynamic entry, that is, they go in to make a apprehension of the hostage taker, the most important thing is all hostages that are in there should always hit the ground, stay on the ground low, because police will always look for the largest mass of that individual. Now, let's get down to the other part of this. What's very important is, have they started a negotiation with the hostage taker? In most hostage incidents, you want to get a dialogue going. You want to be able to get credibility between you and the hostage taker. You want to start to get a dialogue. There are different ways. The police have a lot of techniques in the hostage negotiation program where they could find out if he has a cell phone. We do know that there was a family dispute at his house where he lived, and I'm sure they were able to get a cell phone number. And what they'll try and do is start communications with him. Another thing that's very important, you've got to have an inner perimeter. And as you said earlier, that they were moving the crowds back, that's important because the only people that will be allowed inside the inner perimeter will be the SWAT team, the emergency service personnel, and they'll also have the negotiators. The negotiators work in three-person team. They work with the negotiator. They work with a coach who sits next to the negotiator and gets information and intelligence from the floater who goes out and deals with the law enforcement personnel that are out there who are gathering intelligence. If a negotiation starts, they're going to start to talk with him and find out what his position is, what his needs are. We understand that he is needed. And also keep in consideration that he's in Trader Joe's where you have all emergency, you have a pharmaceutical area there, you have food there. So this can be a very long event. So you got to be able to also realize that it's going to be a very long event on your side, and that's why you have to also have your reserve of other negotiators available should this be an ongoing thing. But remember, the longer it takes to negotiate, the better chances you have of having a successful outcome.
Right. Well, this incident started around 4.5 hours ago. Mr. Zines, stay with us. I just want to welcome our viewers here in the U.S. and around the world. We are continuing to watch breaking news out of Los Angeles. There is a hostage situation underway at a Trader Joe's grocery store in the Silver Lake area of Los Angeles. A strong police presence has surrounded this store. We understand from LAPD that a gunman has barricaded himself inside. There are people who are inside with him, and that makes it, as our experts have been telling us, a hostage situation. There have been no reports of any deaths. There has been a report of one injury, according to law enforcement there, a young woman who was taken to the hospital in fair condition. As I mentioned, this started around 4.5 hours ago, so 1:30 p.m. local time in Los Angeles, when the suspect, who is a young African-American male in his late teens, shot his grandmother and another young woman. The LAPD says that he then fled in his grandmother's car with the young woman. The police then followed him. The car crashed into a pole. At that point, the suspect exited the vehicle with his gun, started firing at officers, and fled here into this Trader Joe's. And that is where we are now. I want to go to CNN law enforcement analyst